There's no denying it, LinkedIn is by far one of the most expensive ad platforms. Some even go as far as to say it's called the Bentley of paid media. Okay, yeah, no one's ever called it that. But some people have gone as far as to call the CPCs from LinkedIn bonkers. But the reality is, if you're in B2B and looking to target your audience using firmographic data, 9 times out of 10, LinkedIn is going to be one of the best approaches to get in front of your target audience. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get the cheapest clicks possible on LinkedIn ads while still maintaining very, very high quality targeting. If you want your budget to go further without spending any more money on LinkedIn ads, then this is definitely the video for you. So before we get into the tangible actions of how you can get cheaper clicks, we first need to take a step back and look at the LinkedIn ads auction as a whole. Because the reality is, it's the foundation of everything when looking to gain greater media buying efficiencies. God, I hate the word media buying. Anyway, LinkedIn uses something called a second price auction, where the winner only pays as much as the price offered by the person who becomes second place in that auction, plus, well, 1 penny. So if you bid £6 and your competitor bids 4 and you win the auction, you're only going to pay £4 and 1p. But it's not quite that simple, as there is one more factor that comes into play, as well as how much you're willing to bid, which is a relevancy, or well, relevancy score. In its simplest terms, relevancy score is a number from 1 to 10 on how likely LinkedIn thinks the user is to click on your ad and achieve the chosen objective. And we'll get onto the objective more in a minute. And while this relevancy number is a hidden number, which is made up in real time for each auction, there are 3 core components, which are 1, expected click-through rate, so the click-through rate that LinkedIn thinks the ad is going to get, historical data, so historical click-through rates and engagement rates, and what they deem your landing page experience to be. So let's do some quick maths to illustrate how price you're willing to pay plus relevancy score determine the outcome of the auction. And bear with me, this math will be over soon and we'll get onto some really actionable tactics that you can go and implement to get better results from the same or even less of a budget. For this example, say we have 2 users trying to get in front of the exact same audience. One user bids £5 and the other one has bid £10. We then look at the relevancy score out of 10. So for example, the one who bid £5 gets a relevancy score from LinkedIn of 8, and the one who bids £10 gets a relevancy score of 3. The next stage is simple. The total scores of these 2 are calculated by multiplying them together, and the winner is simply the one with the largest number. The total was 40 for person 1 and 30 for person 2. So person 1, even though they bid less, won due to the higher relevancy score, and then how that bleeds into the auction dynamic. So how much does this person pay? And as mentioned earlier, this is a second place auction, and to work out how much that person would pay, you divide the total score of the second place bidder divided by the relevancy score of the winner. So in this case, that's 30 divided by 8, which equals £3.78, which as you can see is a far bit cheaper than either of them went to go bid in the first place. Okay, so this all sounds nice, Ben, in theory, but how can I go away and actually implement it to make a real difference in my marketing for my company? And this is something that I think about a lot more than the average person anyway. And over the years, there's probably 4 main applications where you can immediately go away and gain the benefits of the insight of what we've just gone through right now. First thing is you can leverage remarketing audiences to get cheaper CPCs. And let me explain this. Now, if we remember earlier, quality score is literally determined by how likely LinkedIn thinks the person is to click on your ad. And what better indicator is there than someone who's already clicked on your ad? So therefore give you automatically a higher relevancy score. So we ran a couple of tests, and here's an example of one. So what we did is we went out and set out an exact audience we wanted to target, and we served them with a video. I won't get too much onto the objective we did because I'll get onto that in a second. We went to manual bidding, again, something I'll get onto in a second, but they said we recommended bid of £8.80, and people similar to us are bidding £6.17 to £16.05. And we therefore put a video out, and what we did is anyone who watched 25% of this video or engaged with this video of this exact demographic and firmographic we were going after, we put them into a remarketing audience. So we said anyone who's watched a certain amount of the video, anyone who's engaged with the video. We then created a remarketing audience and targeted just the people in that first campaign, no one else, and then target them again. And if we go down here, we can see that when we came up again, LinkedIn was saying, okay, we only recommend you bid £6.16, and people in the similar boat to you are bidding £4.17 to £11.84. And if you can see the contrast of between £6 to £16 to now £4 and £11, and the estimate bid being about £2 lower, that's crazy when you think about the scale that some people spend on LinkedIn ads. If you're getting £2-3 cheaper CPCs across the board after someone's first engaged with you, then it kind of begs the question, why would you ever want to go for multiple touch points with the same user in that first audience if it's going to be much more expensive? And it's one of the reasons why you probably will go onto LinkedIn and a lot of the ads you see will be retargeting audiences, because the relevancy score is so high that people can just bid less and you'll see a higher frequency. So what we recommend people do a lot of the time is, say you're going after an audience, you want to make sure that you target them all from a first touch point. Anyone who then engages with that audience, you then put into a remarketing list, and then for the next 365 days, which is the longest remarketing audience you can have, you can keep that data. You can then solely target them through that remarketing list and make sure you remove everyone from the first touch list. And that bit's really important. You want to make sure that you create a negative audience. So you say that anyone who's engaged with these ads, don't target them again for this first touch point audience, because otherwise you'll just be spending that amount more money on each click versus just solely having them in the remarketing campaign, which is why it's so good to structure a campaign. Typically we'd say first touch to get that audience in. With an engagement, we target them for as long as we can within the remarketing layers to control CPCs and control the creative. And then we have a whole separate one for intent, which would be anyone who's come from a Google Ads high intent query to target them again from a different perspective. So it kind of really plays into how you structure your ad account, how these CPCs and relevancy score feeds in to the dynamic of the LinkedIn ads auction. The next one is campaign objectives. As mentioned earlier, 1/3 of relevancy score is based around how likely LinkedIn thinks your objective is going to be achieved. And if we look at these over here, we can see that we have awareness, brand awareness, we have website visitors, we have lead generation as an example. And which one do you think LinkedIn thinks your client is going to achieve more within the first click? Do you think they're going to achieve a website visit? Very, very likely if they click on your ad, they're going to achieve a website visit. Are they going to achieve a conversion? Which one do you think LinkedIn is going to say, okay, relevancy score wise, we're actually going to give someone's probably going to achieve the website visit click much more than they're going to achieve the website conversion, for example. A lot of the time, unless you have loads and loads of data in your account to try and then steer LinkedIn towards targeting those people, which still then I'm not convinced it's way better than say website visits. LinkedIn is most likely going to give you a better relevancy score for doing website visits over website conversions, because they ultimately think that your objective is going to be hit, because one is a lot less friction than the other. So what we recommend, especially if you're starting out on LinkedIn ads, is to always do website visits over website conversions, because website conversions is nearly every single time more expensive. LinkedIn's actually giving you a lower quality score because they think the likelihood of your objective being reached is going to be much lower than the other objective for website visits. You can also play around with the likes of, video views. Could be quite good for video just to get in the reach out there, and engagement for thought leadership ads, which is something I'll get onto in a minute. The next one is bidding strategy. And we see this a lot where one of those things over the last few years, the LinkedIn have started becoming more automated. It's just the natural evolution of ad platforms that they start getting more automated. They start bringing in different types of bidding to give, I guess, the user more of a helping hand. But in a lot of cases, it's just throwing money away. And in this case, it's LinkedIn ads maximize delivery. Now, we've gone to as far as thinking there may even be an issue with maximize delivery because it spends, from a CPM and CPC perspective, it's crazy. And the theory behind it is LinkedIn is saying maximize delivery is good for making sure that you spend your budget. That's the main thing behind maximize delivery. It's like, we'll make sure, don't worry, you spend your budget in the day, which isn't always a good thing. It's almost never a good thing. So what we recommend is not using maximize delivery, but instead going on manual bidding. And then within manual bidding, you get given a suggestion between £6 and £16, for example, as that first touch. But then we'll go in with between £4 and £5, and then we'll keep an eye on it, because a lot of the time you still get served to the same audience, even when you underplay how much they're saying that you should spend, even from a lowest benchmark. So if someone says £6, try £4. If it doesn't serve that much, and look at the audience demographic coming through, won't get too much into that today. So I have plenty of videos around that, which I'll link to at the end. But you can go through and go lower, make sure it's still being served, and then you can play around manually with the CPCs. And I'd probably, at this stage in LinkedIn's life, I wouldn't go and do maximize delivery or any sort of maximize CPA or CPL versions they may bring out in the near future, because it's not quite as sophisticated as the likes of Google, in my opinion. One of the ways you can get cheaper clicks, again, would be looking at thought leadership ads. Now, these have come out in the last year, and they're probably one of my favorite ad types personally. It's ultimately where you can promote through your personal profile and amplify that from your company budget, and anyone else who mentions your company through their personal profile, through just doing it from a sponsored from your LinkedIn company page. And this works really well because the engagement type, again, is really cheap. It does take a lot of just even saying see more is an engagement type, for example. But if, say, for example, if you want to use that as a first touch point to say, okay, I want to get cheap clicks to then put people into a remarketing audience, we can get really cheap engagement clicks for, under £1 most likely, and then depending on audience, and then you can go through and you can then start creating that remarketing audience with other ad types of creative, which ultimately then is going to allow you to have a cheaper CPCs, which really compounds from a cost saving perspective in the long term. And there's so many different ways you can do it. But we're really just scratching the surface here because there's so many cool things you can do on LinkedIn ads, and 99% of companies don't actually know about these things, and that's quite good for me because I've created a video on that. If you want to go look at strategies and tactics and activities you can run on LinkedIn ads, which most companies don't even know about yet, then make sure you click this video up here, and I think you could enjoy it. But until next time, guys, have a great day.